The suitcase was already in my hand when my phone buzzed. I glanced at the screen, expecting a last-minute question from Emily about the flight. Instead, I saw words that nearly knocked the breath out of me. "Dad, you're not coming with us. Ryan thinks it's better if this vacation stays family only." That was it. No explanation, no apology. Just a gut punch in the form of a cold, detached text from my only daughter, sent just minutes before I was supposed to leave for the airport. Family only? Family only? I was her father. Her only father. The man who had spent months crafting every detail of this trip: Paris, Rome, Santorini. I'd booked the flights, chosen the hotels, paid for every last expense, from the museum passes to the taxis. I'd even made restaurant reservations so we could avoid wasting a single minute searching for places to eat. And now, after all that, I was being told I wasn't part of my own family, that I was being erased like some unwanted extra. The words burned into my retinas as I read them again and again. My heart hammered in my chest, my grip on the phone tightening until my knuckles whitened. Outside my Asheville home, the morning sun streamed across the porch as if the world hadn't just tilted on its axis, completely oblivious to the icy flood of betrayal coursing through me. I set the suitcase down harder than I meant to and walked back inside, each step ringing through the hallway like the steady drumbeat of a countdown to something I couldn't yet name. On the coffee table, the travel brochures lay scattered: the Eiffel Tower, the Colosseum, the blue domes of Santorini, all mocking me now. Every glossy image a reminder of the trip I had built from the ground up, now ripped away without a shred of decency. And somewhere in Paris, oh, I could picture it, my smug son-in-law Ryan was probably grinning to himself, pleased at the thought of having his way yet again. But this wasn't just his usual controlling nonsense. This was personal. I didn't know it then, but that single, heartless message didn't just cancel a trip, it drew a bright, permanent line in the sand. And the moment I stepped over it, there would be no going back. Not for them, not for me, not ever. If this story touched your heart, press 1 inch the comments. If you think it could have been handled differently, press 2. And I'd love to know, where in the world are you listening from? I wasn't just losing a vacation. I was standing in the middle of my own home, feeling the ground shift beneath me, realizing for the first time how far I'd already been shoved quietly, deliberately out of my own daughter's life. Emily Harper was my pride and joy. From the second she came into this world, I swore I'd give her everything I never had. When her mother passed away and left us alone, Emily barely 12, I became both parents. We survived on late-night talks at the kitchen table, on burnt grilled cheese sandwiches when neither of us wanted to cook, on a promise I made in the dark: "I'll take care of you, always." I worked overtime, skipped every vacation, and poured every extra dollar into her future. Then she married Ryan Mitchell. I told myself that, in time, he'd see my devotion and treat me like family. His parents, Paul and Denise, smiled when they had to, but their eyes gave them away smug, dismissive, like they were indulging some charity case when they spoke to me. I let it go. I told myself it was nothing time and kindness couldn't fix. But instead of getting closer, the distance became a canyon. When they couldn't get a mortgage, I bought them the Craftsman on Willow Creek Lane, outright told them it was just until you get on your feet. That was 4 years ago. My name is still the only one on the deed, but that fact has been buried so deep, it's as if they think the house sprouted from the ground just for them. I cleared Emily's student loans without her asking. I paid off Ryan's car when he lost his job. I covered their credit card bills more times than I can count. Every Christmas, my gifts were the kind of luxuries most people have to save for months to buy. And yet here I stood, the one deliberately cut out, the one left behind. Ryan works in real estate, but somehow never has the kind of money a man in real estate should. He's charming when there's something in it for him, but I've seen the calculation in his eyes, always weighing, always scheming. I brushed it off for years, telling myself I was imagining it. Now, in my silent Asheville living room, there was no denying it. The travel itinerary on my coffee table, highlighted, tabbed, organized to the last detail, was the product of months of my planning, my excitement. Emily and Ryan would still be using it walking through the streets of Paris, standing in the shadow of the Colosseum, watching the sunset over the blue domes of Santorini without me. My eyes drifted to the framed photos on the wall. Emily in her cap and gown, Emily and Ryan slicing their wedding cake, Emily grinning on Christmas morning with the golden retriever puppy I'd bought her. Every single one was a snapshot of my generosity, and now they looked like exhibits in a trial where I was the fool who kept giving. Somewhere in Paris, my daughter was raising her glass with Ryan's parents, probably laughing over the best family vacation ever, as I'd later see plastered online. And here I was, staring at the suitcase I'd packed with care, wondering how many years I'd mistaken being indispensable for being truly loved. I didn't have a plan yet, but one thing was carved into my bones. I was done swallowing it. Whatever came next, I wouldn't just sit here and let them write me out of my own life. I didn't wait long before calling her. Paris was already well into the afternoon, which meant they had no excuse not to pick up. My thumb hovered over her name, a part of me daring her not to answer. Then I tapped call. 3 rings. 4. And then her voice, bright, sugary, almost rehearsed, spilled into my ear. Hidat. In the background I caught it all. The hum of street chatter, clinking wine glasses, a car horn somewhere off in the distance. And beneath it all, unmistakable Ryan's voice, low, smug, like a man who just won something. I need to understand something, I said, skipping the small talk entirely. What's that? She asked, distracted, like she had one eye on me and the other on whatever postcard-perfect cafe they were sitting in. I saw the photos on Facebook. You said this was family only, but Ryan's parents are there. What am I, Emily? Some stranger you let foot the bill? Silence. The kind that stretches until it chokes. When she finally spoke, the cheer was gone. Dad, we can explain. Number. Explain now. A pause. Then, look, Ryan says you can be overwhelming. He didn't want his vacation ruined. The words slammed into me like a brick to the chest. Overwhelming? Ruined? I planned this trip. I paid for... Ryan's parents paid their own way, she cut in, voice suddenly cold. They don't expect us to take care of them constantly. Constantly. The word dripped with accusation, as if I were some burden dragging them down. My pulse spiked. And I do? You supported us when you chose to, she shot back. We never asked for a guilt trip. Somewhere behind her, Ryan laughed not even at me, but the sound sliced into my ear all the same. Then she delivered the final blow. Honestly, Dad, Ryan's right. You're too needy. It was like she'd reached through the phone and slapped me across the face. Needy. The man who had co-signed their mortgage, wiped out their debts, and funded half their life was now being boiled down to that ugly, dismissive word. I understand, I said finally, though it felt like swallowing glass. Good, she replied without a shred of warmth. We'll talk when we get back. I hung up without saying goodbye. The phone sat heavy in my palm as I stepped into my office. The walls were lined with our history. Me teaching Emily to ride a bike, walking her down the aisle, holding her in my arms the day she was born. I reached out to straighten one frame, my fingers trembling less from grief now, more from something sharper. Because as I stared at those smiling snapshots, another truth burned through. Every single one was tied to something I had provided. The $30,000 wedding I paid for, the college degree I funded, the house I bought outright, Christmases, birthdays, anniversaries, all gilded by my generosity. And in return, an uninvitation from the trip I had dreamed of, planned, and financed. I sat at my desk, yanked open the drawer, and let the bank statements spill out across the surface like an indictment. The $80,000 down payment on the Willow Creek house. The car payments I covered when Ryan lost his job. The credit card bills I wiped clean sometimes without being asked because I knew they were drowning. The vacation fund I'd built for years, now paying for their grand European escape. But it wasn't just money. It was my life, piece by piece. The fishing trip with friends I canceled to babysit for them, the date I turned down because Emily needed help moving, the countless dreams I shelved so theirs could happen first. And now the pattern was so obvious it was almost insulting. I hadn't been loved. I'd been used. I stacked the statements neatly, aligning every edge with care. My hands were steady now, not because the hurt was gone, but because the fog had lifted. Emily and Ryan didn't see me as family. They saw me as a bank account that answered the phone. And God help them, because that account had just closed. The next morning I woke with the same knot in my chest, tight enough to make every breath feel shallow. Sleep had been impossible every time I closed my eyes. That word needy blazed across my mind, like a neon sign I couldn't switch off. I sat at the kitchen table nursing a cup of coffee that had long since gone lukewarm when my phone pinged. I almost ignored it, assuming it was some generic bank notification. But something maybe instinct made me check. A transaction alert. Liberard Restaurant, Paris, France. Time-stamped just a couple of hours ago lunchtime for them. I stared at the screen, frozen. Emily and Ryan were eating in Paris. On my dime. My bank app confirmed it. The charge had gone through on the authorized user card I'd given Emily years ago, back when I naively thought helping her build credit was an act of love. I scrolled further, and each entry twisted the knife deeper. Hotel charges, boutique shopping sprees, museum tickets. They'd cut me out of the trip but kept my money as their silent travel companion. Before I could even process the growing heat in my chest, the phone rang. An international number, I answered. Dad, what did you do to the card? Emily's voice was sharp, accusatory. I removed your access, I said flatly. You can't do that. The waiter came back 3 times before we had to use Ryan's dad's card. It was humiliating. That must have been embarrassing, I replied, taking a slow sip of coffee, letting the pause sting. Embarrassing? It was mortifying. You need to fix this. For what? I thought you didn't want me taking care of you constantly. Her tone sharpened like broken glass. That's completely different. Is it? I asked. Muffled voices in the background. Then she came back, her voice laced with venom. You fix this now, or there will be consequences. Ryan and I have been talking. When we get back, we're looking into care facilities for you. My coffee cup froze halfway to my lips. Care facilities? You're getting older. You obviously can't handle your finances responsibly. We'll sell your house to pay for it. Todd says it's for your own good. I let the silence drag until I could hear her breathing quicken. Dad, are you listening? I heard every word, I said. Good. So you'll fix it. Number. Oh? What do you mean, no? I mean, enjoy the rest of your family vacation. And I ended the call. The house was still, but inside me, the anger that had been simmering since yesterday now burned clean and hot. They weren't just excluding me, they were plotting to take the one thing I had built with my own 2 hands, my home. I walked to my office, each step deliberate, pulled open the filing cabinet. My fingers bypassed my own deed and landed on another folder, Willow Creek Lane. Emily and Ryan's house. The title stared back at me, and there it was in bold print, my name. Only my name. For years they'd told me they'd get around to transferring it into theirs. They never had. Now I knew exactly why. I stared at the Willow Creek Lane deed for a long time. The paper felt heavier than any sheet of paper had a right to be like it. Carried the weight of every temporary favor I'd ever handed them, every sacrifice I'd justified as love. If they thought they could sell my home to bankroll my exile, it was time to teach them exactly how wrong they were. I opened my desk drawer and pulled out a worn business card. Ethan Chang, real estate broker. Ethan had sold me both my Asheville place and the Willow Creek property. He was discreet, efficient, and most importantly, he didn't ask questions he didn't need answers to. He picked up on the second ring. David, how's retirement treating you? I need to sell a property, Ethan. Fast. The house on Willow Creek? He paused. That's Emily's, isn't it? It's mine, I said, my tone flat enough to leave no room for doubt. And yes, Willow Creek, how fast can you move it? He didn't pry. Market's hot. Similar homes are pulling $450,000. I could have it listed tomorrow. Price it to move. I don't want it lingering. By the time we hung up, the listing agreement was already in my inbox. I printed, signed, and scanned it back within minutes. My mind was already on the next step, getting every last thing Emily and Ryan owned out of that house before they even realized it was for sale. That's when I called Tom Sanders Moving and Storage. Tom Sanders, a voice answered, steady and no nonsense. I need a full house cleared and moved to storage. Tomorrow morning. Where to? I gave the Willow Creek address. The residents are out of the country. I have the keys. Everything needs to be gone before they're back. A pause, then Tom said, Family situation? Something like that. Understood. Been there myself. We'll be careful and fast. Next, I called Lisa Carter at Secure Storage. She recommended a 10x20 unit, promised to have the paperwork ready, and I prepaid the first month without hesitation. When I hung up, I realized I was breathing easier than I had in days. The fog of humiliation had burned away, replaced with a cold, steady calm. In my bedroom, I laid out my old work jeans and flannel shirt, the kind I wore when I was still running my contracting business, back when nobody questioned whether I could handle myself. That night, I slept better than I thought possible. The decision was made. At 7:45 a.m., I pulled up to Willow Creek Lane. Tom's moving truck was already idling at the curb. The house looked just as it always had, white trim, navy shutters, the porch swing I'd built with my own hands. But I didn't see their home anymore. I saw an asset, my asset. Tom climbed out, shook my hand firmly. Let's see what we're working with. I unlocked the front door. Inside, the silence had an edge to it, like the house itself knew it was about to change hands. We did a quick walkthrough. The expensive leather sectional I'd given them last Christmas. Ryan's state-of-the-art gaming rig. Emily's closet, stuffed with designer clothes I'd indirectly paid for. Every last bit of it was going into storage. Tom warned me about liability when I insisted on helping. I'm not that old, I told him, and one of his guys grinned. With every box I carried Emily's books, Ryan's sports gear, the knot in my chest loosened. For the first time in years, I wasn't giving, I was reclaiming. By mid-morning, the crew had settled into a rhythm, 2 men hauling out the heavy furniture, one wrapping fragile items in bubble wrap, and me ferrying smaller boxes to the truck like I'd done it 100 times before. In their bedroom closet, I found the wedding photo albums. Out of habit, I flipped one open and froze. Page after page, Ryan's family stood front and center, all smiles, practically glowing. And me? I was in maybe 3 photos, always at the edge of the frame, as if someone had been careful to crop me out of their story from the very beginning. I shut the album and handed it to one of the movers without saying a word. In the spare bedroom, a crib leaned against the wall beside a box of neatly folded baby clothes plans that had clearly never come to life. For half a second, I felt a pang. Was I being too harsh? Then I saw the open envelope on the desk. Inside were Ryan's latest credit card statements, charges for designer watches, first-class flights, high-end boutiques. Luxuries bought while they'd been telling me money was tight. Any flicker of hesitation vanished like smoke. "Everything all right, Mr. Harper?" Tom asked, catching my pause. "Just memories," I said, sliding the envelope shut. "Let's keep going." By 11:30 a.m., the house was stripped, bare walls naked, floors echoing under our steps. Afternoon sunlight spilled across the hardwood, catching every scuff and scratch like scars. We caravanned to secure storage, where Lisa Carter met us at the gate. Unit 47B swallowed their possessions in less than an hour. When the last box slid inside, I locked the door, pocketed the key, and handed Tom a thick stack of cash. He shook my hand with quiet respect. "Hope things work out for you." "They already are," I told him. Back home, I poured myself a glass of water, sat down at my laptop, and saw the notification from Ethan. Offer received, $460, $5,000, cash. Buyer wants immediate closing. I called him instantly. "Make it happen. David, that's above asking. Are you sure you don't want a counter?" "No," I said. "The sooner the better." We locked in the closing for Friday, 2 days before Emily and Ryan's return flight. The precision of it felt almost surgical. That night, I stood at my front window, looking out over my quiet Asheville street. For years, I'd thought of myself as the provider, the glue holding everything together. But for the first time, I wasn't the one being leaned on. I was the one making the moves. And somewhere in Paris, over a plate of crème brûlée, they were laughing with Ryan's parents, blissfully unaware that their forever home had just vanished, signed away to someone else with the stroke of a pen. Saturday morning dawned bright and cool, the kind of Asheville day where the Blue Ridge Mountains looked so perfect you'd swear they were painted. I decided to take one last drive to Willow Creek Lane to see the house during its final transition. A U-Haul sat in the driveway. The buyers, Ben and Olivia Carter, were directing movers, their toddler squealing with delight as bubbles drifted across the freshly cut lawn. Olivia knelt in the front garden planting flowers, while Ben helped a mover assemble a swing set out back. It was exactly the kind of scene I'd once pictured for Emily. I was still parked across the street when a taxi rolled up. Emily stepped out first, rumpled from the overnight flight, hair tied back, shadows under her eyes. Ryan followed, tossing cash to the driver. They froze at the sight of the truck and the strangers in their yard. Confusion flickered, then alarm. "Excuse me," Ryan called to Olivia, his voice rising. "What are you doing in our house?" Olivia looked up, startled but courteous. "Your house? I think you're mistaken." Ben appeared in the doorway, paperwork in hand. "We closed yesterday. This is our home now." "That's impossible," Emily shot back. "We've lived here for 4 years." I stepped out of my car, envelope in hand. Emily's eyes found mine, her expression shifting in seconds relief, then realization, then pure fury. "Dad, what's going on? Why are strangers in our house?" Her voice had that sharp edge I knew too well. I turned to Ben and Olivia first. "Sorry for the confusion. Please carry on with your move." Then I faced Emily and Ryan. "The house was sold. It was mine to sell. Check the deed, my name's the only one on it. Always has been." Ryan's face darkened. "You can't just sell our home." "I can sell my property," I said evenly. "Which is exactly what I did." "This is theft," Ryan snapped. "We'll sue you." "With what money?" My tone didn't rise, but the words hit hard. "Your credit cards were declined in Paris, weren't they?" Emily's voice slipped into panic. "Where are we supposed to live? Where's our stuff?" I held out the envelope. Ryan ripped it open, reading aloud. "Secure storage, Unit 47B, Brady Street." Her voice cracked. "You put our life in storage?" "I preserved it carefully," I said. "First month's rent is already paid." "This is insane," Ryan barked. "You can't do this to family." "Family doesn't cut fathers out of family vacations," I replied. "Remember, you said that was completely different. Is it?" Ryan stepped closer, posture squared, trying to intimidate. "We'll fight you in court. The sale is legal. The title was mine. You won't win." Emily's voice softened, dripping with manipulation. "How could you do this to your own daughter?" I met her eyes without blinking. "How could you do what you did to your own father?" From the porch, Olivia called, "Everything all right?" "Just fine," I said, my gaze never leaving Emily. Then to the Carters, "Enjoy your new home." Emily and Ryan stood stranded on the sidewalk, Paris luggage at their feet, looking like tourists who'd wandered into the wrong life. I walked back to my car. Ryan's voice followed me down the street. "This isn't over." I started the engine, classical music filling the cabin. "Yes," I murmured, pulling away. "It is." 3 months later, the doorbell rang on a quiet Tuesday morning. A process server stood on my porch, manila envelope in hand. "Mr. Harper, you've been served." I took the papers to the kitchen table, slid a finger under the flap, and read. Emily and Ryan were suing me over the sale of Willow Creek Lane. No shock there, I'd been expecting this move from the moment they stood screaming in the street. By that afternoon, it was over. The judge's ruling was almost surgical in its bluntness. Property owner had full legal right to sell. Plaintiffs responsible for their own attorney fees. My lawyer called minutes later. "Clean win, David. They've got nothing left to stand on." I filed the court papers in a folder labeled Legal Victory and slid it into the cabinet like shelving the last chapter of a book I didn't plan to reopen. Around Asheville, word traveled fast. At the coffee shop, I caught snippets from nearby tables. Always thought that son-in-law seemed entitled. David worked hard his whole life. He deserved better. A few voices muttered about family sticking together. But I'd learned something. When you stop letting people drain you, their opinion doesn't hold much weight. One afternoon, I stopped into the local pet shop for birdseed and saw him a golden retriever behind a glass partition, watching me with eyes that seemed to say, "I've been waiting." The tag read, "Max, 3 years old. Owner moved overseas." The store owner said he was good with people, loved car rides. I knelt, and Max's tail thumped against the wall like he'd already picked me. An hour later, he was riding shotgun in my truck, head out the window, ears flapping in the wind. A week after that, we were at an RV dealership. I traded in my second car for a 25-foot Airstream, small, self-contained, and perfect for one man and one dog with nowhere they had to be. On the morning we left, the house was locked, mail on hold, neighbors briefed. Max was in the passenger seat, my hand steady on the wheel. We rolled through town one last time, past Willow Creek Lane. In the yard, Ben and Olivia's kids were laughing under the same porch swing I'd built years ago. A green highway sign flashed. Blue Ridge Parkway, 2 miles. I glanced at Max. Ready to see what's next? His tail wagged. Some ties break on their own. Others you cut clean. This time I was the one holding the knife, and the freedom felt good.